Catherine, in your designs, in your designing, has rock and roll music had any sort of influence on you at all?
Well, I suppose I listen to music a lot. I'm a music addict. And I can't say whether rock and roll music particularly, I mean, I like, it's got a lot of drive and passion and a raw edge, and I suppose it's an inspiration as far as I couldn't live without it. Yeah, of course it is.
What inspires you most when you design? What is your biggest inspiration, or is there one?
Well, I think of, if I was going to go out and pull somebody, what would I be wearing? You know, I mean, that's how I start. Or if there was a man that I fancied, what would he be wearing? And I sort of put myself into an imaginary situation, a sort of trance-like state, you can say. Shut my eyes and think what he'd have on, and then I have it pretty clear, so I draw it out, and that's what we do. But, I mean, I'm inspired by everything that's going on around me. And I think that fashion is it's like a state of play of the present, really, how people dress, what they look like. Tells you everything.
How important is color to you when you design? Do you think color first and then
I always think about color, but at the moment, and for like ages, color, you know, like red, pink, blue, yellow, isn't been. I mean, I think we did some color in '84, but I'm off it. We're onto it a bit, I think, for next winter, but still, I feel that sort of black. I mean, black is a color in a fashion sense. Whereas, you know, academics would argue that it's a tone. I mean, black's great. It symbolises so many things. It's formal, it's dramatic, and it's unboring as well, isn't it? I think I went to Thailand and we were going around this monastery, and this monk came up to the guy I was with, because they're not allowed to talk to women, and said, is she man or woman, to start off with, which I thought was a bit unflattering. And then he said, why are you wearing black? Why is she wearing black? In Thailand, it's a colour that they wear to go to cremations. And I mean, it's been very trendy in the West, hasn't it? I mean, could we be anticipating some kind of cremation? I think it has a tremendous symbolism. Colours have emotions attached to them. That's why they're important. And also, if you get bored of black, you want to go to bright colours, get bored of bright colours. You go to neutrals, get bored of neutrals, go to pastels. But I think that, yeah, colour is an emotional value. It's like a sound. It's like each sound, each chord has got a sort of an emotional rapport. So has every colour. Like red makes you excited. They used to put green on the inside of army hats, so that when the guide had this really bad day in the trenches, they could sort of go, take his hat off, and it was pale green inside, and he was supposed to be soothed by it. I mean, how kind can you get?
I can't imagine being soothed by pale green.
Apparently it is soothing. I mean, so, you know, they work it out, psychologists work out what colour does what to you. But I think that pop stars really like black because it's subversive, it's anarchic, isn't it?
Well, do you remember the first rock star that you were interested in or attracted to what they were wearing? It was something that caught your eye.
Well, I mean, they always looked spectacular, didn't they? I mean, Elvis looked great. I mean, Elvis's gold lame suit, I think, is probably about the first thing that I remember. But, I mean, you have to project on the media, I mean, and you've got to dress up. I think a lot of musicians find it very difficult to choose clothes, because people who are musically orientated aren't visually orientated. And an enormous number of groups, although they can produce the most beautiful sound, find it impossible to find a style to suit themselves, and they experiment often very badly with it. But it is interesting that people who are involved in sound do seem to have sort of it's like if you want to hear music or you want to listen, it's often a good idea to lower the light so that you have less light energy coming in, so that you open up your other senses.
How important do you think that, or do you think that music, television, such as it were, and in making music so visual, is changing music at all?
Well, I think it helps you still a bad song. I think that you can have, and it can also improve a good one. I must admit that up to date I've been fairly disappointed with pop videos. You know, on the whole, I think that sort of they have a pretty low cinematic quality, unfortunately. I think it helps, and it's marvelous if you've got somebody. If Madonna looked like, if you didn't see what she looked like, you would not buy a record, because I mean, I think that she's got the tinniest voice in the world, but she is, you know, a beautiful, beautiful creature. And you know, this is, you know, I think her force really is not her singing voice, sounds like a Barbie doll, but it's her beauty and her wit. I mean, I think she's a very clever woman, but you know, she certainly before television she would never have sold as many songs as she's selling with it.
I agree 100%. Who else out there do you think is doing in the music world is doing, or who do you think is doing innovative fashion?
Fashion, hard to say. I mean, visuals. I mean, Talking Heads, obviously. The Streets Ahead. Fashion-wise, who's trendy? I mean, I like. There's a group that we use. They did a single called Agent 008, and it's a West Coast group, and I've forgotten their name, but they look very sharp group of girls with a kind of funky post-punk thing. I think they've got it together, but I mean, I can't think of anybody like Barry Manilow. Could it be Barry Manilow? No. I don't think that. I mean, I can't think of anybody actually who's got their clothes together. Simple Minds look quite good sometimes, but then they overdress, I think. I can't think. Mick Jagger wears my clothes. He looks great. I can't think of anybody. Who do you think looks good? Who do you think really makes a fashion statement?
That's a tough one. I think that probably, although it's not a statement that I agree with, I think Prince makes a fashion statement.
Oh, does that sort of OD, terribly wide jacket, sort of, I'm a sort of bolognese gigolo look. Yeah, I hate his clothes.
Yeah, I think, you know, and I think that unfortunately Madonna also makes a fashion statement.
I think she dresses the best, actually. I mean, she shines. She's an inspiration. You can see lots of fashion designers have been inspired by that sort of bra top with the suspenders holding it up, a sort of bathing costume, or yet another bathing costume in a mag. It was beautiful too, yeah. I think she dresses very well, but I can't think who else does.
I can't think of anybody that
I mean, I think that black musicians tend to dress very well because they dress this complete defiance of kind of Western standards of what's good and bad. A lot of reggae groups dress in a sort of that kind of Rastafarian mixing, a lot of active sportswear kind of thing. They look good, but white groups, forget it. Phil Collins looks quite good, I think. He looks smart. Pete Townsend's a snappy dresser.
What about Sting?
Yeah, he looks good from time to time, although I don't know about that sort of Mad Max look too much. Yeah, I think he looks good.
Have you followed the sort of personal fashion evolution that David Bowie has gone through in the last 20 years? Do you think he's interesting at all?
Well, he just wears suits, really, doesn't he? I think, yeah, he looked good. I saw some clips from Absolute Beginners, and he looked good in that. And I like the men's clothes in Absolute Beginners. I don't like the women's clothes much. Yeah, I think he looks all right, but, you know, probably not as sharp as Pete Townsend, really, on the whole.
I thought it was real interesting. I don't know if you've seen the new Pete Townsend video for Face to Face.
No.
He's wearing the gold suit, which I thought was kind of interesting.
I take it all back.
He's dressed as a band leader, but I thought it was an interesting sort of evolution going from Elvis to Pete Townsend wearing this gold suit. I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, there's so few people out there who are dressing well or seem to make any sort of, you know, effort to dress well.
I mean, what about Ziggy Ziggy Sputnik? Do you like their clothes?
Well, no, it hasn't hit America yet.
Have you seen pictures of them?
I saw a picture just the other day. I mean, it's all anyone over here is talking about.
I think there's such an outrage because people think that it's a bad song, but I mean, they're selling it very well. It's like about number 2 or something here on the hit parade. So people don't buy stuff they hate.
Could your clothes be stage clothes?
Well, everybody's used them as stage clothes. Wham, Rod Stewart bought, I think it was the last tour, he equipped himself entirely from us because he found it was so comfortable, because we did, we designed clothes to be comfortable, and I think that that's what, like you put them on, you forget them, and yet you know that you're looking good, you don't have to worry about it, and I think that's what performers want, because the last thing you want to be thinking is, oh my God, is my back neck standing away, as you're middle of, your best single, and we design clothes that are comfortable, and so yeah, they surely work on stage.
How did the big T-shirt come about?
Just T-shirts started getting bigger and bigger and bigger. I don't know, they just felt right. But that's to do with sort of freedom, and of course big T-shirts. I mean, you look at them on kids, it's very flattering somehow. It's sort of an indication of a garment sort of drooped over human frame, and they're just so comfortable.
How did, whose idea was it for them to be in the Wham video? Did that come from the
Well, no, they weren't actually ours. Wham rang us up. Oh, you mean the slogan T-shirts, and you say big T-shirt? Oh, that's a different story. Wham rang us up after they'd seen the slogan T-shirts, saying, would we do T-shirts with go-go on them? But since we'd stuck with the T-shirts to fairly sort of important issues, I thought it would be really awful to suddenly come up with go-go. That would be sort of the end of it, sort of the firework was damp. And so we didn't do it, so they just copied them and did their own. And Frankie did the same thing as well with their Frankie Says Relax, which they're friends and they admit it quite happily. But ours were about something completely else. I mean, they were to do with the fact that we were being so copied all over the world, and there's nothing much you can do about it because designers like artists aren't protected. And it used to be like the designer was the poor one, the manufacturer was the rich one, so the law's on his side worldwide, as usual. But it's changing. And you can spend so much time saying, oh, he copied that, I'm going to get him for this, and look at this one and that one. You get sour and bitter and obsessed with the past, and you forget that, at the time you spend pursuing one copyright infringement, you can be producing 10 new fabulous designs, of which another 8 will get copied. But, you can be out there doing it, and I thought, I've just got to solve this. What would be really great if it was copied to death? Because it got to the point, it started off, they see something that sold really well in the shops after being there about 3 or 4 months, and then they copy it. And then it got to the point, it all did so well, that as soon as the first delivery of any season's clothes went into the shops would sell out immediately to some manufacturers going in to buy them. It's a slight exaggeration. And anyway, I thought, right, so we'll give them something to be good if it was copied. And I thought, why not arguments for world peace? Just right the wrongs, let them copy them, make it so that you can be photographed, you can be a contact print for 35mm negative in any third-rate newspaper. And it's still going to be legible, because the most important thing is to get the messages across. I didn't actually think that we were going to sell them, but I thought that we'd get, catwalk publicity. But all the shops came in who I'd never really discussed politics with before. American Vogue did a U-turn when they saw them and walked straight out of the showroom. But all the shops came in and said, oh, we want them, we want them, we want them, we want to sell them. And they did all over the world, and everybody copied them, and they sold out. I've seen them everywhere, from like pyramids to Bahia in Brazil. I mean, everywhere. And I have friends who've come back and said they've seen them everywhere. And it was also about the fact that people feel very helpless and powerless. Everything's got so big, that what can one person do? And, you feel it's really frustrating when you care. You get sort of rushes of it, and you think, oh my God, but I'm so helpless. And that's really bad feeling to have. It leads to depression. And I thought, well, you can do that if you wear it. At least you're making a statement, and people can see it, and it'll just wake them up and make them think about it. But the amount of people that bought that stuff, and the amount of people that wore it, the amount of publicity it got, the amount of media coverage, and I think it's subliminal. They're like headlines. 3 words go in. Do you know what I mean? I think they got nauseating in the end, to the point you just see somebody coming along with writing on their T-shirt, you just go, ugh, like that, so that you wouldn't read it. You'd avoid reading it because you were bombarded to death. But I think it was a good thing.
Oh, I think it was great. Did you have any idea when you were doing it that it was going to catch on that quickly?
Well, I was very excited about the idea because I thought it worked, on a lot of levels, like it was a good thing. It was a way of getting back at the copiers. It was a way of manipulating the media. It's a way of getting into places. I mean, for instance, in Brazil, they do pictures of T-shirts we wrote in Portuguese saying, preserve the rainforests, as fashion, whole pages of magazines, whereas a serious article at all on that subject would have been eliminated. And so that, we were getting through censorship areas. I mean, I noticed that Reagan's actually produced one now, which says, stop the spread of communism in Central America. Which I think is a load of rubbish. We did one called US Go Home, and I sent them down to Joseph on silk. He sent them straight back. He was terrified that they would offend his American customers, because, I'm pretty upset about the sort of Anglo-US link with Mrs. Thatcher and the way that we've somehow sort of crews are deployed here really in a very undemocratic manner. I'm not against the American people, but I'm against American arms being just, pattered all over Europe. Suddenly it's a fait accompli. It's like a kind of silent and bloodless takeover. We're no longer in charge. America decides. Maybe they retaliate or something with them. Who knows? And so we did them because of that. But anyway, couldn't sell them. So I went with a friend. It was quite funny. She's, terrific peace activist, but she also drives a white Mercedes pickup. And we went down to Greenham Common, and we gave them away. We gave away about, 250, 300. And by the end of the day, it was incredible. I've got Super 8 footage, if you'd like to borrow some, actually. I've got Super 8 of it. And it was all these women wearing US Go Home. But everywhere you went, children, old women, everybody, everywhere you looked, you got this thing of US Go Home. It's really pretty. If you're interested, I'll let you have some. Because it would be the first time that's ever been used.
That would be great. We'll coordinate that with Joyce. What do you think it is, Catherine, about the state of the world today that's making you, as a fashion designer, be interested in what's going on, and made Bob Geldof get interested in what's going on in Africa, and American musicians work on Farm Aid? What do you think sort of triggered it? Did we just get tired? I think
it's got so bad. And I mean, basically, we know how bad it's got. And it's got so bad that I suppose, I'm a sort of a baby boomer growing up, and we're all having kids. And when you have children, we've all been sort of professional adolescents for a long time. But when you have kids, you suddenly realise it's not, if you get killed in a fast car and you don't have kids, well, you just think, so what? Really, what a great way to go. When you have a child, you start thinking about all the other things. You can't be killed because who's going to look after your child? And then you also see your child under threat. And I think it's when you start having children. But I think what's amazing is that I think there is a swing, there's a new generation emerging that cares. I think that people really care, and they're frustrated and infuriated and outraged. And it's a bit like that. Was it Peter Finch's last film in America? I think people have just suddenly got to the point where they've had enough. I mean, I think the peace movement actually will control the balance of power at the next election. I think it's that serious. There's 2 million in England, and they're going to vote for whatever political party comes up with the right manifesto, which is, green, ecologist, conservationist, anti-nuclear. Because I think that we've all realised that we've got to stop them, we've got to do something, because nobody else is going to. I mean, in this country, we have the highest incidence of child cruelty in Europe, and yet the people that are really mainly responsible for protecting children are the NSPCC, which is the National Society for Prevention of Cruelty to Children, privately funded. They nearly went bankrupt in '84. I mean, what's the government doing? They're just spending all their money on bombs. I mean, have you been here long? Have you seen the state of the place? I mean, in the winter, there's a terrible case of a guy who had a heart attack, and he was taken to 5 hospitals before they'd let him in, because they're so overcrowded, because they're not spending enough on the social services. I mean, everywhere you turn, it's got to be so bad that even, decadent, self-indulgent fashion designers are getting up in arms and saying this is just too much, we've had enough, and it's got to stop, it's got to change now.
Did you participate in Fashion Aid?
Mm.
And how was that?
Well, it was a fabulous evening. It was really exciting. It was an incredible exercise in logistics. It was a good show. I think the mistake that they made was probably not selling the live TV rights the way they did with Band Aid. I don't know how the sales of the video have gone. I mean, it was a fantastic show. It was really beautiful. People were so excited in the audience. I mean, even like the Duchess of Kent was sort of jumping up and down in her seat, sort of waving around T-shirts saying, "Stop children dying." And it's just, what was interesting is that I just think that people have become much more humane over the last, say, 2 decades. Whereas, you know, in the 40s and 50s, you'd have pictures of big game hunters going out shooting gorillas, and it would be hooray for the big game hunter. It's now, "You bastard." And, you know, it's like the polarization. You never had the power to destroy so much, and yet there's this bottom level. I think younger people, I think people under 35 are seeing the world in a very different way.
I agree. We're concerned about keeping it.
Well, that's it. I mean, that's what it's down to. Even if you're, I mean, the facts are so obvious. I mean, here they're doing huge cover-up jobs on Sellafield, which is about the most disgusting nuclear power station in the world. It's created the world's most polluted sea, which is the Irish Sea. 11.5 times the normal incidence of cancer in children between nothing and 20. And they're saying it's a statistical quirk.
Let's go back to fashion and music for just 1 second. Do you think it's possible to separate the two, fashion and music? Could pop music be what it is without fashion, do you think?
I mean, they're forms of self-expression, aren't they? Really, and pleasure. It's funny, isn't it, that music in England, I think, is the best in the world, and fashion in England is the best in the world too. I mean, maybe it comes from the fact that we're all having such a hard time. That, you know, basically this is getting to be a poor country where you have a low standard of living for the rich and for the poor. It's appalling, and it's this sort of... But it's funny, you know, and I was going to say that this creativity comes out of oppression, but it's funny that, you know, the fashion designers aren't musicians, and the musicians... well, as fashion designers don't cut singles, neither do musicians know how to dress. And yet, I mean, I love fashion and I love pop music, and I'm sure that pop musicians... Do they love fashion, I wonder? Do you love fashion?
I think they do. I think they do.
They know they need to look good. I mean, that's what fashion's about, you know. I mean, pop stars are sex symbols, and fashion's about sex. Sex and status, really. Still, style is status. And who you are, too. What you like, who you'd vote for, what music you like. I always say you can tell what music people like from the way they dress.
In the 60s, London was certainly a center for music and fashion with the Carnaby Street and the Beatles, and I mean it was all sort of happening right here. Is it happening here now, do you think?
Definitely. The Italian fashion industry, which is bigger than the car industry, is fueled by British talent at the top. Big companies, all the best big companies have got British designers. Gautier, who's like King of Paris, is called like the head of like the look anglais. I wouldn't quite say, but he admits that he is totally inspired by England. I think the Japanese learned a lot from Vivienne Westwood. And then if you go, I mean, everywhere from like the Alaska to the Sahel, you pick up, you know, you listen to the radio, and the most exciting music that's being played is British. It's true. Do you think it's true?
I think it's definitely true.
God,
I think it always
that's a relief.
I think with the exception of the 50s, where
America ruled. But you see, this is where America came in, because America educated Europe. You had got the American forces network in Europe. And that's why the Germans got to be so good, because they had these fabulous American radio stations. And I mean, this is where we picked it up from. It's funny that the French really missed out. Because I mean, there's nothing good come out of France, pop music-wise.
I don't know that I think. No, there never has been.
They just don't seem to be able to get it together.
No.
They're too bourgeois.
I think it has a lot to do with well, I think the pop music all comes from Black America and the blues, and understanding the blues, and it comes from a depressed economy, and I think that's how it got started here, you know, and English people having a great appreciation for Black Americans and that sort of soul sound and that blues sound that they could create, and trying to emulate it. I think that's how it developed.
I think it goes on from there, because we've got a lot of black people here. I mean, the influences are from Africa, really, aren't they? I mean, we've got a lot of black people from the English colonies here, like Jamaica and the West Indies. And so what's really nice now is that you see groups who just completely mix black and white kids, been to school together, play the same music. Was it UB40, a classic example? And I mean, this white guy there with the black voice.
Exactly, exactly. Thanks for coming.
Pleasure.
I appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you. For next winter. But still, I feel that sort of black, I mean, black is a colour in a fashion sense. Whereas, you know, academics would argue that it's a tone. I mean, black's great. It's sort of, it symbolises so many things. It's formal, it's dramatic, and it's unboring as well, isn't it? I think I went to Thailand and we were going around this monastery and this monk came up to the guy I was with, because they're not allowed to talk to women, and said, is she man or woman to start off with, which I thought was a bit unflattering. And then he said, why are you wearing black? Why is she wearing black? In Thailand, it's a colour that they wear to go to cremations. And I mean, it's been very trendy in the West, isn't it? I mean,
Catherine, in your designs, in your designing, has rock and roll music had any sort of influence on you at all?
well, I suppose I listen to music a lot. I'm a music addict. And I can't say whether rock and roll music particularly, I mean, I like, it's got a lot of drive and passion and a raw edge, and I suppose it's an inspiration. As far as I couldn't live without it. Yeah, of course it is.
What inspires you most when you design? What is your biggest inspiration, or is there one?
Well, I think of, if I was going to go out and pull somebody, what would I be wearing? You know, I mean, that's how I start. Or if there was a man, would we be anticipating some kind of cremation? I think it has a tremendous symbolism. Colours have emotions attached to them. That's why they're important. And also, if you get bored of black, you want to go to bright colours, get bored of bright colours. You go to neutrals, get bored of neutrals, go to pastels. But I think that, yeah, colour is an emotional value. It's like a sound. It's like each sound, each chord has got a sort of an emotional rapport. So has every colour. Like red makes you excited. They used to put green on the inside of army hats, so that when the guide had this really bad day in the trenches, they could sort of take his hat off and it was pale green inside and he was supposed to be soothed by it. I mean, how kind can you get?
I can't imagine being soothed by pale green.
Apparently it is soothing. I mean, so, you know, they work it. I fancied. What would he be wearing? And I sort of put myself into an imaginary situation, as a trance-like state, you can say. Shut my eyes and think what he'd have on, and then I have it pretty clear, so I draw it out, and that's what we do. But, I mean, I'm inspired by everything that's going on around me. And I think that fashion is the kind of, it's like a state of play of the present, really, how people dress, what they look like. It tells you everything.
How important is colour to you when you design? Do you think colour first and then
I always think about colour, but at the moment, and for like ages, colour, you know, like red, pink, blue, yellow, isn't been. I mean, I think we did some colour in '84, but I'm off it. We're onto it a bit. I think that psychologists work out what colour does what to you. But I think that pop stars really like black because it's subversive, it's anarchic, isn't it?
Well, do you remember the first rock star that you were interested in or attracted to what they were wearing? There was something that caught your eye.
Well, I mean, they always looked spectacular, didn't they? I mean, Elvis looked great. I mean, Elvis's gold lame suit, I think, is probably about the first thing that I remember. But I mean, you have to project on the media, I mean, and you've got to dress up. I think a lot of musicians find it very difficult to choose clothes, because people who are musically orientated aren't visually orientated.